Chesed.
Yeah.
If one said to a borrower, "Where is my bull?" and he replied, "It died," whereas in fact it broke a limb, was captured, stolen, or lost, and he replied, "It broke a," or he replied, "It broke a limb," whereas in fact it died, it was captured, stolen, lost, and he replied, "It was captured," whereas in fact it died, broke a limb, was stolen, or lost, and he replied, "It was stolen," whereas in fact it died, broke a limb, was captured, or lost, and he replied, "It was lost," whereas in fact it died, broke a limb, was captured, or stolen, and he said to him, "I adore you," and he replied, "Amen," he is exempt. If he said to him, "Where is my bull?" and he replied, "I don't know what you are talking about," whereas in fact it died, broke a limb, was captured, stolen, or lost, and he said to him, "I adore you," and he replied, "Amen," he is liable. If one said to a paid shomer or to a renter, "Where is my bull?" and he replied, "It died," whereas in fact it broke a limb or was captured, or he replied, "It broke a limb," whereas in fact it died or was captured, or he replied, "It was captured," whereas in fact it died or broke a limb, or he replied, "It was stolen," whereas in fact it was lost, and he replied, "It was lost," whereas in fact it was stolen, and he said to him, "I adore you," and he replied, "Amen," he is exempt. But if he replied, "It died," and it broke a limb or was captured, whereas in fact it was stolen or lost, and he said to him, "I adore you," and he replied, "Amen," he's liable. If he replied, "It is lost," or "It was stolen," whereas in fact it died, broke a limb, or was captured, and he said to him, "I adore you," and he replied, "Amen," he is exempt. This is the rule. Whoever changes from one liability to another liability, from one exemption to another exemption, or from an exemption to a liability is exempt, from a liability to an exemption is liable. This is the rule. Whoever swears to make it more lenient for himself is liable. To make it more stringent for himself is exempt. Adrenaline.
Okay, and one in Eduyos.
Okay. Eduyos. Okay. Aleph Bet. Shammai says Kala is due from one cob, but Hillel says from two cobs, and the sages neither.
No, that's today's stuff. Do Mishna Aleph Chazara.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, Aleph. Shammai says all women, it suffices for them their time, but Hillel says from examination to examination, even for many days. And the sages say neither in accordance with the words of this one and neither in accordance with the words of that one. Rather, 24 hours reduces from examination to examination, from examination to examination reduces 24 hours.
Okay.
Any woman who has a fixed period, it suffices for her time. When a woman has marital relations with examination clause, this is the equivalent of an examination. It reduces 24 hours and from examination to examination. Okay.
Okay. Carrying on the theme of things where Shammai and Hillel have a machlokes and the psak is like neither of them, we move into the subject of challah. Shammai omer mikav lechallah. He says that just from a kav of flour, you have to separate challah. Hillel omer mikabayim. And Hillel says from two kavs. Now, what's the svara behind each of them? Is that you've got to the amount that has to be taken should be Reshis Aris Seichem, and is what's given to the Kohen. So looking in the commentary over here. Nesina is no less than a kabetza. So Shammai says that since the shear of the challah for a balabayis is 1 out of 24, and therefore the dough from a kav, therefore the dough from a kav is chayv in challah because a kav is 4 logs and a log is 6 beitzos. Okay, so he's basing it on the fact that that from 24 beitzim, which is 1 kav. Okay, so 24 beitzim, which is 1 kav, you'd be chayav to take 1 beitza of dough, and that's the shear and the sinner that he says that and that's what we have to base it on. How much is chayav in challah. So whereas Hillel doesn't measure it according to the balabayis. Remember in challah, there's the shear for a professional baker is double the shear of a private baker. So Hillel bases it on the professional baker, which is 48 eggs, which is 2 cup, which is why Hillel says that it needs to be 2 cups, which is so a cup is approximately 2 liters. So Hillel's the most machmir and says when you've got 2 liters of flour, then you need to take and Hillel's is saying 4. Okay, Chachamim lo k'divrei zeh v'lo k'divrei zeh, not like either of them ever. Ela kav umechza chayavim b'chala. You say a kav and a half is chayavim chala. Okay, and what's the basis of this is omer asiyus ha'efa, and the efa is 18 kav. So therefore the issa that we require to give challah of is 2 kav minus a fifth, in other words 1.8. So it comes up through the mathematics that they're working out here, and you can look in the commentary what exactly the math is. It's not that important at the moment, but basically it comes out to 1.5 kavs. Okay, and then they changed there was a realignment of recalibration of the measurements. One in Tzipori, they enlarged the general the Yerushalmi measurements by a sixth. So now it turns out that the amount that's required is 5 quarters. In other words, 1.25 cups. So instead of requiring 1.5 cups, it's now only 1.25 cups because the cup measure got larger. Okay, the halacha is 1.25 cups. In other words, 2 and about 2.5 liters.
There's something in there also called a wilderness omer.
Yes, the wilderness omer. Was there a second time? There was. I don't know how the Mida Midbaris was right. So Mida Midbaris was 5/6 of the Yerushalmi Mida, and then the Yerushalmi Mida got increased to the Tzipori measure, also by enlarging it to 5/6, by 6 over 5 at least. But it was added on a sixth onto that again. So they increased the measures twice.
Yeah, well, they're different. For example, this says, I'm in the middle of a sentence here, but it says, wilderness lugum became 5 Jerusalem lugum, leaving a remainder of 1 wilderness log plus 1/5 eggs. The 1 wilderness log of 6 wilderness legs becomes 5 Jerusalem eggs. The 1 1/3 eggs become 1 Jerusalem egg. So were different places where they had different measurements?
Well, they named it after. It wasn't that they had different measurements in different places. It was that they were mataken, that the increase in the measures for the whole country in that place. So it was called the Yerushalmi measure, and then in Tzipori they changed it and it was called the Tzipori measure.
All right.
Okay. Rabbi Yossi says Chamisha Peturin Chamisha Va'od Chayavim. Rabbi Yossi makes a little subtle change that the 5 login is still pater. 5 login plus a bit. In other words, plus a what the odd is another beta, or you have to remove another. You have to add another beta onto that in order to be chayav, so that you're left with 5 quarters of a cup after you've taken challah.
So in today's world, what is the amount that we do for challah today?
So midoraisa is would then be 2.5. Yeah.
2.5 eggs.
2.5 liters.
Liters, okay.
2.5 liters of flour is midoraisa. There is people are machmir sometimes to that even with less than that, you take challah just without a bracha.
If you take more out of bracha, okay. All right. I'm glad I don't make challah, so
I do. I've gotten into making sourdough.
Really? Oh,
yeah.
I like sourdough, but I hadn't had bread in so long that I don't even know. I have a little piece of challah for. I have enough.
We'll talk afterwards about breads, okay? If you remind me.
Yeah.
Mishna. Okay. Another subject that we can switch to is now mikvahs. Okay, so so we know about a mikvah that it has to be filled. The first 40 sa'ah has to be filled with rainwater, untouched, natural flowing water. It can be rainwater, it can be river water, whatever it is, but it can't have been drawn by a person.
Right.
And therefore, so that first 40 sa'ah has to be kosher water. Now, what happens if somebody went ahead and put drawn water into that first 40 sa'ah? So that will be puzzle if it's the right measure. And now we're going to have a machlokas, but what's the measure that makes a mikvah puzzle? Okay, he says a hin measure, and we're going to get a little bit distracted a second by the fact, why does he say melohin? Why not just say hin mayim instead of melohin, a full hin? So the Mishnah explains, he learned this from Shemayan of Avtalion, and I think there's a discussion about what was that he's copying the lashon, because being a Gerim from a different culture, Shemai and Avtalion couldn't pronounce the hey properly, and they said "melo in" instead of a hin. And if you say in, it can sound like en, and it's a en ma'im she'uvim poslim as a mikvah, which would be exactly the opposite thing. That they're saying that ma'im she'uvim does not pasal a mikvah. So he added the melo in order to make it clear that it's melo hin. It's a full hin measure, so that it's totally clear. Anyway, he preserved the lashon that he learned it from his Rebbeim, and that's why it says melo hin rather than just hin. Shammai Omer Tisha Kabin, he says 9 kabs. Okay, and right, so 9 kabs is a smaller measure. Sorry, because a hin is 36 log, right? Shammai Omer. Wait a second. Let me just make sure I've got the how much is a hin? How is 4 log in? Log is 30. Sorry, I'm just getting. It's like Hogwarts sort of currency measures. 17 nuts to a sickle sort of thing. And
this says if a hin or more of shuvin is mixed into less than 40 saw of valid water, the mikvah is rendered unfit.
I'm just trying to get how much is a hin.
It says a hin is a biblical measure, the equivalent of 12 lugim.
12 logim. Thank you. Right. So 12 logim. Okay. So when Shammai says Tisha Kavin, so a kav is 4 log, right? Did I get that right? A kav is 4 logim.
Right.
Yeah, a kav is 4 logim. Okay. So if he says, so he says Tisha Kavin 9 times 4 is 36. So he's saying 36 logim. And let's do that well. Okay, so what did and sorry, the hin was how much?
The hin is 12 lugum or 3 calves.
Is 3 calves. Okay, and Shammai. So Shammai is more machmir over here. Sorry, Shammai is more makil over here. That he says that you need a lot more to passel the mikveh. Okay, and once again the halacha is chachamim omrim lo kedivrei zeh v'lo kedivrei zeh ela ad shebao shnei gardim mishar ha'ashbos shebirushalayim. Says they give a bit of history of how this halacha was learned. Two weavers came into dung gate in Yerushalayim. And they said in the name of Shemai and Avtalion, Shloshes logim mayim she'uvim poslim is a mikveh. Wow, very, very machmir. They're much more machmir than either Hillel or Shammai. So only 3 logs is enough to passel a mikveh. The kimu chachamim es dibrehem, and chachamim said, okay, you have you 2 humble weavers have basically overridden Hillel and Shammai.
Yeah,
the 2 witnesses are coming and saying it in the name of Shemai and Avtalion.
It says it takes 9 calves of water to disqualify a mikveh. That's 3 times the amount required by Hillel. And in this case, Shammai is more lenient, considering an incomplete mikveh to be valid until 9 calves of shuvim are mixed in.
Yeah, okay, so that's going back to Shammai's opinion. Now we're coming to the halacha from the 2 weavers. Okay, so the two weavers give us the halacha that we follow today, which is 3 login. Okay, and Mishnah Dalet kind of follows on from this, from what we're saying over here. Okay, so why in all of these cases, of these previous 3 Mishnayos, why do we bother mentioning the opinions of Hillel and Shammai when they're not going to be la halacha? So there's a general klal that we're learning in all Mishnayos. Why do we mention the opinions that are not accepted? Well, this Dalet is referring specifically to Mishnah Gimel. That Hillel and Shammai had their opinions, and then came these 2 humble weavers from the lowest echelons of society, but they came and had an edus on Shmai and Avtalion. And then Hillel and Shammai themselves heard this edus of what Shmai and Avtalion said. They said, you know what? We said what we said, but we're changing our minds. We're going along with what these 2 guys are saying.
That's interesting because I mean I was thinking that who are these 2 weavers? I mean, you have Shammai and Hillel, and then you have these 2 weavers who it says a weaver's profession is really like not such a great profession. All this one.
Exactly. So that's exactly the point. Is that they're from the lowest echelons of society. They're not great Talmidei Chachamim, but they're balabatim who learned from Shmai and Avtalion. Obviously, they're older generation,
right?
And they came and they said, no, this is what we learned from Hillel and Shammai. They give edus on it, and Hillel and Shammai say, edus is edus. We accept it.
Wow.
Okay, back to Shavuos.
Okay. There's no, we don't have one more to do?
No, that's it.
Oh, that was 2. Okay. All right, we're going to do 2. Okay. Back to
Shavuos, Hey Daled.
If someone said to him, you violated or you seduced my daughter, and he replied, I did not violate her, nor did I seduce her, for which he said, I adore you, and he replied, Amen, he is liable. Reb Shimon exempts him, since he does not pay a fine by his own admission. They said to him, although he does not pay a fine by his own admission, he pays the indemnity for shame and impairment by his own admission. If someone said to him, you stole my ox, and he replied, I did not steal it, to which he said, I adore you, and he replied, Amen, he is liable. But if he replied, I stole it, but I did not slaughter it, and I did not sell it, to which he said, I adore you, and he replied, Amen, he is exempt. If he said to him, you killed my ox, and he replied, I did not kill it, or it should be, I did not kill it, to which he said, I adore you, and he replied, Amen, he is liable. But if he claimed, you killed my ox, your ox killed my slave, and he replied, I did not kill him, I adore you, and he replied, Amen, he is exempt. If someone said to him, you injured and wounded me, and he replied, I did not injure you, nor did I wound you, to which he said, I adore you, and he replied, Amen, he is liable. But if his slave said to him, you knocked out my tooth and you blinded my eye, and he replied, I did not knock it out, nor did I blind it, to which he said, I adore you, and he replied, Amen, he is exempt. This is the rule. Whoever pays by his own admission is liable, but whoever does not pay by his own admission is exempt. The oath of the judges is for a claim of 2 silver and an admission of the value of a pruta. But if the admission is not to the same kind as the claim, he is exempt. How so? If one claims 2 silver of mine are in your possession, and the other replies, you have in my possession only a pruta, and he is exempt. But if he claims 2 silver and a pruta are mine in your possession, and the other replies, you have in my possession only a pruta, he is liable. If he claims, I have a mana in your possession, and the other replies, you have nothing in my possession, he is exempt. But if he claims, I have a mana in your possession, and the other replies, you have in my possession only 50 dinners, he is liable. If he claims a mana of my father's is in your possession, and the other replies, only 50 dinners are in his possession, he is exempt, because he is one who returns a lost object.
Okay. Sanhedrin, test base.
Yeah. One who aimed to kill an animal but killed a human, or who aimed to kill a Gentile but killed a Jew, or who aimed to kill a premature baby and killed a viable one, is exempt. If he aimed to strike him on his loins and the force of the blow was not sufficient to kill at that spot, but struck his chest where his force was sufficient to kill and he died, he is exempt. Excuse me. If he aimed to strike him on his chest and the blow contained sufficient force to kill at that spot, but it struck his loins where his force was insufficient to kill and he died, he is exempt. If he aimed to strike an adult and the force was not sufficient to kill an adult, but it struck a child whom it is sufficient to kill and he died, he's exempt. If he aimed to strike a child and the force was sufficient to kill a child and it struck an adult whom it was not sufficient to kill and he died, he's exempt. However, if he aimed to strike him on his loins and the force was sufficient to kill him at that spot, but struck him on his chest and he died, he's liable. If he aimed to strike an adult and the force was sufficient to kill an adult, but he struck a child and he died, he's liable. Reb Shimon says, even if he aimed to kill this one and he killed that one, he is exempt. If a murderer's identity was lost in a group, they are all exempt. Reb Yehuda says, we place them in a cell, and anytime people sentenced to execution become confused with another, they are subject to the most lenient one. If those sentenced to be stoned became confused and those sentenced to be burned, Reb Shimon says they are all executed by stoning, as burning is more severe. But the comments say they are executed by burning, as stoning is more severe. Reb Shimon said to them, if burning was not more severe, it would not have been meted out to the daughter of a Kohen who commits adultery. And they said to him, if stoning was not more severe, it would not have been meted out to the blasphemer and idolater. But if those to be beheaded became confused with those to be strangled, Reb Shimon says they are executed by beheading, but the state is by strangulation. One who became liable to two forms of execution is subject to the more severe form. If he committed a transgression which is punishable by two forms of execution, he is subject to the more severe one. And Yossi says he is subjected to the one by which the first enjoined.
Okay. All right. Bava Kama. Chesala.
They'll be executed by any one of them. It doesn't matter which they choose, I guess. Okay. I'm sorry, what did you say?
Chesala.
Hey, Kessel. Okay, I thought you said something else. If one wounds another, he becomes liable to him in 5 categories for injury: for pain, for healing, for loss of time, and for disgrace. For injury, how? If he blinded his eye, cut off his hand, and he broke a leg, or we view him as if he were a slave being sold in the market, and appraise how much he was worth and how much he is worth. Pain, if he burned him with a spit or with a nail, even on his fingernail, a place which does not require a wound, we appraise him much less like a man wishes to suffer such pain. Healing, if he struck him, he is obligated to heal him. Should blisters arise on him as a result of the wound, he is liable. If not as a result of the wound, he is exempt. If he healed and then relapsed, he is liable to heal him. If he healed completely, he is not liable to heal him. Loss of time, we view him as though he were a watchman of a cucumber field, since he was already given the value of his hand or the value of his foot. Disgrace, all depends upon the status of the one who was disgraced and the one who was disgraced. If one disgraces a naked person, disgraces a blind person, disgraces a sleeping person, he is liable. However, if a sleeping person is disgraced, he is exempt. If one fell off a roof and injured and disgraced, he is liable for the injury, but exempt for the disgrace. And the varmint says, and she stretches forth her hand and takes hold of his privy or organs. One is not liable for disgrace unless he has intention. This is the stringency of a man over a bull, that a man pays for injury, pain, healing, loss of time, and disgrace, and he pays the value of the young, whereas the owner of the bull pays only for injury and is exempt from the value of the young. Okay.
One more.
If one strikes his father or his mother, but does not inflict a wound upon them, or if he wounds another on Yom Kippur, he is liable for all of them. It is advisable to clash with a slave or with a woman. If one wounds them, he is liable, but if they wound others, they are exempt, although they must pay later. Should the woman become divorced or the slave free, they are obligated to pay. Okay.
Think you haven't finished?
There's still one more? I thought we finished it. Yeah, okay.
There's more in that Mishnah, Gimel.
Then I must have skipped something.
It said just.
All right, you're right. You're correct. If one wounds a Jewish bondman, he is liable for all of them except loss of time. When he is his, if one wounds a Gentile slave belonging to others, he is liable for all of them. And Rabbi Yehuda says slaves have no indemnity for disgrace.
Yeah.
Dollar.
That's it.
Okay.
Tainus. Rav.
5 incidents beheld our ancestors on the 17th of Tammuz and 5 on the 9th. On the 17th of Tammuz, the tablets were broken, the continual daily sacrifices was continued, the city wall was breached, Apostolos burned the Torah and placed an image in the sanctuary. On the 9th of Av, it was decreed upon our ancestors that they would not enter the land land. The temple was destroyed for the first time, and the second time. Beitar was conquered and the city plowed under. Therefore, when Av begins, we curtails joy. During the week of Tisha B'Av, it is forbidden to cut hair, outlawed the clothes. However, on Thursday, it's permitted because of the honor due the Sabbath. On the afternoon before Tisha B'Av, a person may not eat two cooked foods, nor may one eat meat or drink wine. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says that he merely makes a variance. Rabbi Yehuda requires overturning the bed, but the Kama did not agree with him. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel said Israel had no days of festival as the 15th of Av and Yom Kippur. For on those days, the maidens of the Jerusalem would go out dressed in white, borrowed garments, in order not to embarrass one who had none, and all the garments were worn on those occasions requiring immersion. The maidens of Yerushalayim would go out and dance in the vineyards, and what would they say? They would say, "Young man, lift up your eyes and see what you chose for yourself. Do not consider beauty, consider family. Grace is false, and beauty is vain. A woman that fears Hashem, she shall be praised." And it is stated, "Give her of her fruit of her own hands, and let her be praised, being engaged by her own very own deeds." Similarly, it goes, "Go forth and gaze, O daughters of Zion, upon Shlomo, King Shlomo, adorned with his crown. His nation made him on the day of his wedding, on the day of his heart's gladness." On the day of his wedding, this is the giving of the Torah, and on the day of his heart's gladness. This is the beginning of the Holy Temple. A building of the Holy Temple, may it be rebuilt speedily in our days. Amen.
And Hadron Lach, Masechus kindness, and tomorrow's Megillah.
Those words are from, oh my gosh.
Mishna?
No, the words are from Ashes Chayil. That we read before, right? Okay, Demai. We have hey. On the field.
Yeah.
If he gave truma from Demai for the definite devil, it is truma. But he must give truma again from definite devil for Demai from his truma. But he may not be eaten until he has given truma and rice for it. If one leases a field from a Jew, from a non-Jew or a Kutin, he sets his share before them. If he rents a field from a Jew, he must take truma and give it to him. But Yehuda said, when? When he gives him from the same field and from the same species. But when he gives him from another field, from another species, he tithes and gives him. And if one rents a field from a non-Jew, he must give tithe and give it to him. Rabbi Yehuda says, also one who leases from a non-Jew, the field of his fathers must tithe and give it to him. Okay. And we have Tesfa. Regarding mark and grapeskins that were made in the condition of Tahara and Tamayim walked on them, and afterward beverages emerged from them, they are Tahara, for they were originally made in the conditions of Tahara. Regarding a spindle that was swallowed its hook, an ox guard that swallowed its nail, and a brick that swallowed the ring, they are Tahor. If they enter a tent containing a corpse, they are Tameh. If a Zav moves them, they become Tameh. If they fell into the airspace of a Tahor oven, and render it Tameh. If a loaf of Truma reached them, it is Tahor. And regarding a Sarida, it is placed over the mouth of an oven surrounded by a sealed cover. If a crack developed between the oven and the Sarida, its measure is the width of the mouth of an ox gourd that cannot be inserted. Rabbi Yehuda says it can enter. If it can enter, the Sarida developed a crack, its measure is the width of the mouth, and an ox gourd that can be entered. Rabbi Yehuda says even if it cannot enter. If the crack is the sidra was rounded, we do not view it as being straight, rather its measure is the width of an ox gourd that it can enter. Okay. All right. Good.
Yes, well, yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
No, it's a ches. We got to do ches as well.
You did one more?
Yep.
Finish that. Okay. An oven whose eye developed a crack, its measure is the full size of a spindle that can enter and exit while it's on fire. The Yehuda says, which is not lit on fire, it developed a hole on its side, its measure the full size of a spindle that can enter and exit unlit. Rabbi Yehuda says lit on fire. Rabbi Shimon says if the hole is in the middle, then only if it can enter. If it is at the side, then even if it cannot enter. Similarly, Rabbi Shimon would say regarding the stopper of a barrel that developed a hole, its measure is the width of the second node of the stalk of oats. In the middle, if it can enter, the side, even if it cannot enter. Similarly, Reb Shimon would say regarding a large cast that develops holes, the measure is the size of the second note of a reed in the middle if it cannot enter, in the side even if it cannot enter. When are these things said? When the containers were made for wine. But if they were made for other beverages, even if they have a hole in the most minute size, they are tamei. When are these things said? When the holes were not made by the hands of man. But if they were made by the hands of man, even the hole is of the most minute size, container is tamei. If they develop holes, utensils that are intended for food, the measure is with olives. Utensils that are intended for beverages, the measure is with beverages. And a utensil that is intended for both, we apply to its more stringent measure with regard to a seal cover with a large hole large enough to let in a beverage.
Okay. So